All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And today we got all kinds of cool stuff to talk about. One subject in particular. Cody, what is it?
Well, I guess today the biggest thing we're going to talk about, there's actually kind of a couple things, but primarily we're going to be talking about just kind of comparing a little bit in the media what we're seeing between Elizabeth Warren and Andrew Yang. So in a minute, we're going to come back and dive into this article, Yang versus Warren, who has the better tax plan. But first, I wanted to show a video. This video I've been seeing going around a little bit on Twitter. I think it does a pretty good job of summing up the difference between Andrew Yang and Elizabeth Warren when it comes to... Elizabeth Warren's really good at being a politician when you ask her questions. But this was a very bizarre clip of Elizabeth Warren and Andrew Yang answering essentially the exact same question in two very different ways. So I'll play that for you guys right now.
She's a Jimmy Kimmel politician. The one that doesn't answer the question when the kid asks it.
Ethics plans. Could you say whether or not under a Warren administration would your vice president's child be allowed to serve on a board of a foreign company?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the details.
Do you think that would be a problem?
I have to go back and look.
Would you,
She
as
got
president,
caught.
prevent or put into law something that would prevent family members from the administration, a vice president, even you, serving on any kind of foreign company?
I would, and I joked last night that no one wants my 6-year-old on the board of a company, so it's sort of moot in terms of, but I can see if there was some, even a problem of appearance where, let's say that cousin or brother-in-law of mine or something along those lines on the board of a foreign company, then you would think it's like they can just stroll in and have access to the president, and then maybe good things happen. So to me, it's a very small sacrifice to say, look, while I'm in office for 4 or 8 years, none of my family members should be on the boards of, I would say, even not just any foreign company, any domestic company, because you have to be honest where people know that could end up influencing decisions at the highest level.
You think?
Asking your family to take a 4 or 8 year hiatus from serving on board seems to me to be very reasonable.
And yeah, you know what? I would say that does sound extremely reasonable. I mean, Andrew Yang even has policies on his website where he says, like, I'm in favor of raising the wage of the president.
Yeah.
But then saying basically you don't get to profit off being the president later. It's like you're the president. We'll take care of you well. And then after that, man,
Like you'll even become rich and wealthy off it, but rich and wealthy because the taxpayers rewarded it, not rich and wealthy because major corporations have rewarded postponed corruption.
Yeah, or because, you want to woo some investors. Hey, I got former presidents. So stuff like that he wants to get rid of. So I think it's really cool. Something else someone on Twitter pointed out, which kind of was actually a really good point. They said that, like, watching how anxious Elizabeth Warren got when she was answering that question, like, gave them anxiety. Because it was crazy, man. I mean, someone asked her, and then I don't want to rag too much on Warren, but this is getting a little bit close to what we're talking about. So Elizabeth Warren's had a
Can I just pause you for 1 second?
Please.
And just say, I literally, just got done watching a documentary on crime and, how we unfortunately misqualified drug addiction as a criminal issue instead of being a rehab issue and, so on and so forth. But one thing I noticed that reminded me of Elizabeth Warren in this documentary is all of the drug addicts, whenever the cops approach them and say, so is this yours? They're like, yeah, that's mine. Well, no, I mean, I've seen it before, but wait, no. I mean, it's my friends, but no, my friends don't use drugs, but, and just this quick, rapid string of just trying to make up lies. Nobody believes upon seeing it. And if you watch Elizabeth Warren's response, you know what I'm saying? Of just how she responded to somebody asking her, oh, are you going to raise questions? It totally looks like a kid who got caught with a bong underneath their bed by their dad.
Warren administration,
like,
would your
watch
vice
this.
president
There's like 4 different lies in
be
a
allowed
row.
to serve on a board of a foreign company?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the details.
I mean, she had the right answer the first time. No, that's a good answer. No, I wouldn't let him. But then once it came time, here we go. The reason I don't want to get too lost in this, but this was something else that was really interesting. And again, there seems to be a thing with, and this is, like I said, this is going to get a little bit more to the actual meat of the video. I just kind of wanted to lead with that. I thought it was kind of funny, and it was a good, parallel. Very confident answer from Andrew Yang with a joke. Elizabeth Warren, like you said, looked like she either got caught by the cops or, like I said, it was like she went autopilot and just gave an honest answer. I was like, oh, I mean, I have to see the plan. I don't know. And it was anxiety inducing. Here's her being asked yet again if she will raise tax on the middle class. Now, I'll kind of couch it after, but I want you to watch this video and see again what we hear from Elizabeth Warren.
Okay.
So one of the things that a few of your opponents were talking about late last week, really, was this idea of middle-class taxes and health care. So yes or no, should middle-class Americans expect their taxes to go up under a Medicare for All system?
Yeah. You may remember that I've spent a big chunk of my life studying why middle-class families go broke. And one of the number one reasons is health care.
Okay, that's a different question.
Back when I was studying it, about 2 out of 3 families that filed for bankruptcy in the aftermath of a serious medical problem had health insurance. But the problem is it's total cost for these families. So it's what you pay in premiums.
Something else,
it's
I
also
guess.
what you pay in co-pays to see a doctor. Or, sorry, that doctor is out of network, so you've got to pay
She's like
for
the
whole
librarian
thing.
that usually
Or
tells
wait,
people to
the
be
insurance
quiet,
company
just
says
talking
no
endlessly.
on that specialist. Or the insurance company says high copay on this drug, or that drug is not even covered at all. People keep reaching into their pockets and reaching into their pockets even when they have health insurance. So how we have to think about this system is, yes,
do
should
we have to finish
expect
this?
that for giant corporations and very wealthy individuals, costs will go up. But for middle-class families, for hardworking people, costs are going to go down.
But that's
For
not the
me-
same as taxes not going
Bullshit.
up.
What matters to families is costs.
Okay, so this is the thing I think is funny. Talking to a lot of people that are pro-Medicare for all, a lot of them say, why doesn't he just say, yes, taxes will go up, but I think the healthcare benefits will offset it? Like, that is a popular answer. Look, your taxes might go up, but it's going to be offset by your something Andrew Yang says. Look, some taxes will go up, but ittle be offset by the freedom dividend.
That's the
so it's really
crappy,
funny.
arrogant, elitist Michael Moore answer. I mean, if you literally watch Bill Maher's little round table on this 2 weeks ago, so arrogantly, Michael Moore says, well, yes, we're going to take more from you, but we're also going to give more. You're not going to receive less, you're going to receive more. And it's like, wow. I mean,
Well,
you
just answer
don't...
the question. Say, yes, your taxes
Yeah.
will go. She said, oh, well, taxes will go up for large corporations and the wealthy. It's like, well, she didn't ask you about large corporations. It just, here we go, though. The reason why I wanted to
This
bring that
gets
up.
me really angry,
Well, hold
old
on.
man on the porch
Well, hold
yelling
on.
at the kids to get off their lawn. So I'm just going to let you talk for
Well,
the
no,
next 30
we
minutes.
haven't
as I
even
cool
got to
down.
the worst of it yet.
Okay.
It's getting worse. So
Oh, great.
here's I don't know if worst is, but we're going to get more into it. So here's an article from the New York Times saying, again, we led off with this, Yang versus Warren, who's the better tax plan. I love this quote really early on. In the race for Democratic presidential nomination, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and Andrew Yang, a former tech executive and entrepreneur, have both proposed bold plans for redistributing economic resources. Their plans are as different as can be. Only Mr. Yang's is practical. Let's start with some undeniable preliminaries. First, we live in a time of great economic inequality. Economists debate the roles of technology, trade, and public policy explains factor, but there is no doubt that disparity in income and wealth are far greater today than they were half a century ago. Okay.
Oh, my gosh.
Here's what I want to get down to. Instead, let's consider a simple question. Assume that one way or another, the government is going to pursue new policies to increase the equality of economic outcomes. Given that assumption, what is the best approach? Wow. Senator Warren has proposed a new tax on millionaires and billionaires. Every year, households would be taxed 2% on wealth exceeding $50 million or 3% on wealth exceeding $1 billion. The revenue Senator Warren has said
That's
would fund
nothing.
programs such as universal care, child care, and tuition for public education. Wait, it gets even more interesting. So they go through and explain more. The political appeal is clear. Millions benefit. This is where it gets interesting, and this is the debate people don't have. And Andrew Yang brought this up. Listen to this. Take Rihanna. She's fabulously wealthy, but to put a number on her wealth, the IRS would have to estimate the present value of her songs and their possible future royalties. Sometimes such intangible assets are sold on markets. Michael Jackson once famously bought the rights to Beatles songs, but often there is no market price for them.
Yeah.
How popular will those songs be decades from now, and how much money will they bring in? Any estimate would be educated at best, yet it would have to be made. So it goes through and kind of explains how, for example, a husband and wife can divorce and split money that way. However, he goes on down and talks about Andrew Yang's value-added tax. And it says it's easy to see how the Yang proposal would work. Value-added taxes, which are essentially sales taxes, have proven remarkably efficient in many European countries, and the universality of the dividend would make it simple to administer. The Yang proposal will not only be more workable than the Warren plan, but it would also target those who spend lavishly.
Yes, it's a consumption tax.
He explains more,
not
but
an income tax.
Listen to this. I think this is a great way to kind of explain. Here we go. So the Warren proposal hits the frugal executives hard, but leaves the spendthrift without a scratch. The Yang proposal hits the spendthrift hard and takes a smaller bite from the frugal person who saved his money.
Great. We're rewarding good fiscal behavior.
Exactly what I said. If you, like me, think that society should benefit from fewer spendthrifts and more savers, Mr. Yang's proposal makes much more exactly what you said. It's good to have fiscally responsible people who save their money, and that are the people who would be taken to task by Elizabeth Warren.
Well, can I interject here?
Oh, please. I mean, the last thing I wanted to go to, and what we can go through quick, is that Andrew Yang actually did his own point-by-point refutation of the wealth tax on his Twitter account. Brings up a lot of the same things. In many cases, it's hard to come to a proper value of assets, intellectual property, goodwill, which is another thing they bring up. For example, when you sell a company, for example, UCardin, if you sold Unipest, the accountants would say, you're not just buying a company. This company is goodwill in the community. People can trust them, and there's a number value on that. How do you tax someone on what the perceived goodwill value of their company is? So he brings up a lot of great things about that. And then the last thing I want to think that he brings up is, second, many of the truly wealthy would take giant steps to avoid an annual inventory of their assets to the government. This would include even adjusting their marital status and or legal guardianship to divide assets among family members.
Yeah.
Exactly. People would get around it. And then he again makes the pitch that the value-added tax makes
hold
more
on.
sense.
You're backlogging my mind on commentary I have to make here. Basically, the first thing I love is that he understands that currently our income tax system, which was unconstitutional in the first place, really punishes people who are smart with their money. And I don't mean to raise the specter of unconstitutionalism just to be, Mark Levin 2.0, okay? But to show that it's only in recent history we've done this. Like back in the 1920s on Christmas Day, okay, when Congress wasn't in session, a select members of Congress who ultimately were corrupt basically passed income tax because the Constitution at that time had said you can't tax income. Why? Because income comes from hard workers and you don't want to disincentivize work, wages, labor. No, we need more of that. Taxes used to be on goods where if you bought a bunch of tea, for example, which caused the Boston Tea Party, they would levy a 1% tax. All taxes, basically, through all history, and being the most effective, it was agreed that the best taxation was a consumption-based tax. So if you got a wealthy person who's consuming a lot of land because he's buying up a bunch of land because he wants to have a private golf course or whatever, well, then he's going to pay more taxes than the poor person, okay, who's going to work every day in a factory. Why would you punish the person who's going to work in the rich man's factory, you know what I'm saying, by taxing his income? Tax his expenditures. And if he's saving a lot of money because he wants to put his kids through college or he wants to, have a future for him and his wife, or he wants to pay off his house, then don't tax him a bunch because he's not costing the system like the wealthy person that's buying a ton of goods. Okay? So it's important so that we readjust once again instead of punishing more people. Like, I hate this. There's people literally that say, me and Brittany have been caught in this situation. There's been times where we've worried about, gosh, should we take that extra job? Because our taxes might go above the threshold of Medi-Cal. You know what I'm saying? Or they'll say, oh, shoot, is it even worth it for me to get this $50,000 contract? Because after all, I'm in a tax bracket where the government's going to take away the majority of that anymore. And it disincentivizes work. It disincentivizes innovation. It disincentivizes people actually going out and getting that job done, okay, because they're worried about how much they're going to get taxed. So if you have a VAT tax, a value added tax, and you're taxing goods, it's consumption based. And this is a wildly conservative and Republican idea.
Well, I would say mostly a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about this a lot lately, I think more than saying conservative or Republican, I think it's a pro-capitalist idea. I mean, like I said, a lot of times when I argue UBI with people, if I get pushback from them, a lot of time I get pushback because they're basically saying well, UBI isn't actually like a socialist thing. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's not a socialist. It's a capitalist thing. The idea is you need money to play the game, so here's money so you can play the game.
Yeah, and everybody starts out Monopoly with a certain amount of money. Nobody starts out playing the game of Monopoly with zero.
Again, you notice Monopoly, great game of capitalism, right? It's a capitalist thing. I just wanted to highlight a couple things last in this article before we get too far against it. And I just think this is what I find refreshing. Andrew Yang, I don't have a clip offhand. I feel bad I should, just to be fair to Ms. Warren. But Andrew Yang has made no bones about it a lot. Will taxes go up for middle class? Well, yeah, taxes will go up. I think my free and dividend will help offset it, is what he says most of the time. He doesn't give the dance around answer that we get from Warren. But This is fascinating. So he says, persuading voters to embrace Mr. Yang's idea, however, won't be easy. Under his plan, lower income families would get back more than they pay in taxes, but everyone else would see their taxes increase. Higher taxes are always a hard sell, which they are. I think that is, we were talking with Nerds for Yang earlier today, actually. You guys see the video in a couple of days, and he brought up a good point, and I like this, where he said, when you bring the two together, the value-added tax, you could say, well, the value-added tax is going to be regressive. It's going to hurt poor people and lower middle class a lot. Well, you could say, okay, well, that gets helped with an extra $12,000 a year. Kind of helps offset it. But the last thing I want to take away from this article is the gentleman who wrote this isn't a journalist major. This guy is Gregory Mancow. He's the Robert M. Barron Professor of Economics at Harvard and was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors under George W. Bush. So the guy who, love him or hate him, he probably, at the very least, is well-read in economy. I think in order to be the Robert M. Barron Professor of Economics at Harvard University, you probably need some idea of what you're doing. And we see him even saying, look, I think Yang's value-added tax would work. Probably would be unpopular. UBI might help. It would work. Warren's plan, what he brings up with the Rihanna example, it sounds kind of ridiculous. But honestly, man, the goodwill is the same thing, is that when you take into account someone's wealth, for a musician, for example, that is part of Rihanna's wealth. The songs she owns the rights to. What you think you get to just use them in commercials for free? You think when Dodge wants to sell a new truck and they pull some Aerosmith song, they're not paying for it? That is wealth that you would be taxed on, and it is a little bit kind of, I don't want to say pie in the sky, but I almost call it like I think it was the Beach Boys who was on "Wouldn't It Be Nice?" You know what I mean? It's like, it would be great if that worked.
Intellectual property is just like real property. It can be leased, it can be owned, it can be rented, it can be borrowed, it can be leveraged, so on and so forth.
And its value can be erratic. For example, I mean, we saw this happen. It was a little bit grim, but when Whitney Houston passed, all of a sudden that library was, oh my gosh, she was selling. Whoever owned the rights to her music, they were selling records like crazy. She was like the #1 selling artist in the country for weeks. I mean, you don't actually know what's going to happen, and sometimes maybe I hold the rights to someone like a Whitney Houston, and she passes, and suddenly I have the hottest music rights in the country, and my wealth radically increases for a short period. I don't know. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. My only point is people that are actual serious economists are taking a look at this and saying, the value-added taxes Yang is proposing could work. Again, I don't know the most things about this guy. I'm just saying I don't know Harvard University to be the most conservative university in the country.
Yeah.
And if they employ, I know he worked for George W. Bush, but I don't want to get too lost into the politics of it.
Well, it goes to show the bipartisan nature of Andrew Yang. And by the way, I know sometimes you don't like my snarky comments about the New York Times and Dems and all this other stuff.
I'm no fan of the Times.
SJ Dubs. Yeah, neither am I. But I really wish I would have articulated something that I was thinking in my mind as I thought, wait a second. Is the New York Times trying to diversify? Did somebody get fired? Was an editor out that day and they didn't get an anti-capitalist memo? Like, hold on a second. They're not saying the federal jobs guarantee is the way to go, because they're Bernie and Warren and Biden people over there.
But the thing you have to remember is the New York Times in particular.
So it was a guest writer. The only time a good Yang article comes out of the New York Times is when it's a guest writer.
I don't think it's a guest writer.
Yeah.
No, that's how these websites operate. New York Times. That's what I'm trying to say, man. You'd be surprised if you were to just sit there and dig through everything the New York Times published over a week, you would find dozens of articles. You're like, wow, the Times posted. They just don't get talked about and promoted, Tepid, moderate, sort of conservative leaning, but not really, mostly kind of moderate liberal talk. Nobody really promotes that from the Times. It's just kind of like, it's kind of fair and balanced in the middle. No, you only hear about when the Times has to issue retractions. I mean, famously, they talked about how on September 11th, there was a couple of planes that did damage. It's like, oh yeah, those goddamn planes, we got to get them out of the sky. But my larger thing is there are people.
So Cody's defending the corporatists over there at New York Times. Glad to see they got representation.
I'm just saying you'd be surprised if you looked at any of these things. Any news network you say you hate, read everything they post, and you're going to be like, you know what? They post some fair stuff every now and then. But like I said, I think this is such a clear divide, not only between what they're. For example, you realize, like this article kind of highlights it. Yang himself highlights it in a Twitter thread where he goes point by point and explains why this isn't going to work. You realize that Elizabeth Warren is an older type of politician. I'm not age-wise, but she exists in the old school type of politics where, you get to go to people and propose things. No way they ever work. I got your vote. What are you going to do? I already got your vote. You already voted for me. Yeah. I'm in office, so I can't get it done. Where Andrew Yang seems to legitimately actually care about proposing things he thinks he can do and will work. You could tell, dude, this video clip, that first one I showed with Elizabeth Warren, I have the healthcare one up right now. With that first one, man, when they ask her, would you let your kids serve? And she just goes, no. Well,
it's not my bong, officer.
Yeah, I have to look at it more. Like someone said, it makes you anxious watching. So if Yang is going to move on in the polls and Yang is going to make it on, he's going to have to take some swipes at Warren, him and Warren. And you know what? This was the first shots from Yang against Warren.
Oh, yes.
Basically taking her plan, going point by point. It won't work for this reason first. Second reason here. Third reason was the capital flight. Other countries have approached remedying the concentration of wealth through a value-added tax. One should pay equal attention to how the resources are spent. To me, the best use to... he's coming at her here, and we're seeing, man, like, Yang gives straight answers almost always. Elizabeth Warren almost always gives you... It's crazy to me how often I see clips of Elizabeth Warren questions where someone asks her a question, she gives a minute answer, and then they say... But can you answer the question, please? Yeah. That happens almost every single time. So that's all they got here. I just thought it was a little interesting seeing how, we're seeing economists, Yang, we're seeing Yang and the kind of his coalition of economic thinkers pushing back against the wealth tax, which ultimately is going to be Yang pushing back against Elizabeth Warren. We're starting to see it. Yang has been overtly kind and professional when it comes to fellow Democrats running. He only has good things to say about anyone else running, but this is the first time we've seen him say, "Hey, you guys are kind of dumb and wrong." And
but he's so nice about it. Look, I understand the spirit and the appeal of the wealth tax. At the same time, he's like a family counselor who's like, I can understand why you might be angry and want to kick the dog and hit your wife, but Stephen, that's not a good idea. And Jennifer, the temptation to abuse drugs, this is like totally, some kind of family counselor that the government puts you into that has to be nice in the most woefully horrific situations.
Well, he's in a tough spot, man. He's in a party that's kind of in complete disarray. He's an outsider in the party, which kind of helps him because the party's in disarray. So if they're backing you, you're getting backed by people who've got... you would think somebody would pull Elizabeth Warren to the side and say, when they ask you if it's going to raise taxes for the middle class, just say yes, but your plan will ultimately work for them.
That's because the left has taken over the DNC instead of the DNC taking over the left. And Warren and AOC and Bernie run that show. The activists run that show. They are more afraid of the squad.
Hold on.
The squad has influenced Nancy more than Nancy has influenced the squad.
1 second. Before you go off more, you have to remember progressives don't like Bernie Sanders.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, you're right. I shouldn't even include him in there because he is kind of a paper tiger now. He was more that way in 2016.
There is a narrative that if you're a Democratic voter supporting Bernie Sanders, you're sexist for not supporting Elizabeth Warren or another female.
Yeah, exactly. So I should not have included Bernie Sanders in that list. Currently, he was...
Never.
In 2016, he was definitely one of the progressive heads of the party.
No, he wasn't.
He single-handedly changed Medicare for all from being a pariah that most Dems would kind of not want to say to being the thing that everybody on the debate stage raised their hands about 2 years later.
I just want to get this straight up, Bernie. Trust me, Bernie Sanders has done a lot of things which has cost him the progressive vote. He's no longer... Trust me.
Like becoming a millionaire.
Not even like becoming a millionaire. You have to remember, man, Bernie Sanders... had a border policy that, aside from the wall, was really close to Donald Trump. Like, I'm just saying, man. Don't lump Bernie Sanders in with them because he is a different kind of... I'm no fan.
No, you're right.
He's
I would
just a
never
different
lump
animal.
The communists in with the progressives.
He's not even a communist. Right. That's the funny thing.
Even in 1920s Catalonia, Spain, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, he's such a communist. So. He's such a communist. He's profited to the tune of millions of dollars.
Hey, that was neither a World War II nor an Argentina reference.
It's really close.
Right?
It's really close.
Really close.
It's
but
really
it preceded
close.
the
war.
war.
Like seriously, man, Bernie Sanders has even said. Someone asked him he's like, well, look, if people want $1 million to go out there and write a book like I did, like that's basically what he said. And I said, a lot of these people like.
If you write an award-winning book, then you can be a millionaire too.
That's a better Bernie. That's a better Bernie. He doesn't just shout. He just got that voice. But no, the thing, like I said, I think Bernie Sanders, like Warren, they're just a different type of politician. It's an older school type politician where you propose things are never going to work. You're not even going to bother trying to pass them because they're nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. But you propose them to get votes. Andrew Yang doesn't seem to be interested in that. Andrew Yang seems to be interested in proposing solutions to real problems. And he seems to say, hey, you know what? I think a value-added tax would work. And maybe your wealth tax doesn't make any sense because we don't know how to appropriately assess wealth taxes to things like goodwill, intellectual property, and so on and so forth. I mean, because at a certain point, how wealthy? I mean, rest in peace. But whoever owns the Stan Lee, what's it called, estate?
Yeah.
what is the intellectual property wealth of Spider-Man? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it would be very hard to just properly assess it. And it's not just my opinion. It's not just Andrew Yang's opinion. We got a guy who worked for the White House and is currently a respected Harvard economist. Like, there's people that kind of, right or wrong, at least have a
Is there another well-respected economist besides Milton Friedman that endorses Andrew Yang's UBI?
Oh, there's plenty.
Oh, and those 1,000 that
Well,
signed
this
the
doesn't
original
really. I
letter?
wouldn't call this an endorsement for UBI. I think he's just saying that some
One
of
makes
the
more sense, yeah.
well, no, the value add
The
tax,
yeah,
value
I'm
add
sorry.
tax makes sense. Yeah.
I was confusing tax with income. I apologize.
Yeah, no, but like he says though, he says value added tax would be uniquely effective because it would be able to offset the down. Like I said, it almost feels like Andrew Yang sat down and tried to come up with a plan that would work, and he's not just telling people things to win their vote like Elizabeth Warren seems to do.
Yeah.
I'm no economist. I'm not going to get into just reading from economists, reading from Andrew Yang himself. There seems to be a lot of reason why the wealth tax proposed by Ms. Warren, and I believe Bernie Sanders as well, are not exactly going to be necessarily realistic. And there's a reason why. I know a lot of people push back on a value-added tax, but it's kind of hard to say it wouldn't work. It's kind of hard to say it won't generate revenue. It's like it will. Yeah. Will it cause some slight inflation, or like you said, will it negatively impact kind of middle class to upper class people? Perhaps. Would the UBI offset it? Probably. So I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. I've been seeing Elizabeth Warren dodging a lot of questions about her tax plan, how it would affect the middle class. Dude, Stephen Colbert even was like, are you going to raise taxes? And then he had to stop her and said, no, seriously, are you going to raise taxes? Yeah. And she goes, he's like, but is it going to raise the taxes? Answer the question, please. And then seeing, like I said, I apologize. I didn't have a video pulled up, but Andrew Yang has no problem standing up for the value add tax and saying, look, I know the pros, I know the cons. I think it'll help this country, and I think my UBI will help offset it. So I just thought this was going to be a fun this is like round one of Yang versus Warren, a little prelim action, but I thought it'd be pretty fun to just start off here, kind of get an idea of what we're going to see. And dude, if Warren wants to come at Yang on economics, dude,
come at me, bro. Come at me.
I think Yang is going to wipe the floor with Elizabeth Warren if they try to talk economy. I really do.
Oh, it's going to
Andrew
be bad.
Yang seems to have a pretty good handle on that, just because he's.
And you know what she'll say? No, that's a Republican talking point. As soon as he just says, you're going to impoverish the poor that you are actually attempting to represent.
Well, no, it's not even that.
That's a Republican talking point.
Yeah, I don't know what they'll say. I remember when Jimmy Dore gave
They'll call him sexist and say it's a Republican talking point.
I don't know.
They have no defense.
I don't know if Warren does that, though.
She is the third horseman of the SJW apocalypse. They will use nothing but
SJW
answers.
Before this goes all the way off the deep end, I'm done. I'm said my bit. What do you got?
Actually, I don't have anything more. I got it all out of my system, man. I do want to say, though, that I really think the more people argue substantively, the better Andrew Yang looks. The more they argue cult of personality, the more the current front runners, especially those mostly far left radicals that have big Twitter followings or are attempting to get bigger Twitter followings, do well. So it's good to see that the more that we veer verbosely substantive, Andrew Yang rises. And I'm really curious to see how this goes over the next month, especially after these upcoming debates, because the cream of the crop rises to the top, but so does the scum. So anyway, let us know what you guys think. If you haven't had a chance to comment yet, please comment. We still try and respond to all of the comments. If you can, just please smash that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. If you guys want to be able to actually interact with us, come onto Twitch Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually around 5 or 5:30. We stream live and we do our best to respond to as many questions as we can there. Also, if you want to make sure you walk away with a Problem Solver Politics hat, you can join the PSP Army at problemsolverpolitics.com and get a hat to support the channel, or you can contribute in the PayPal link below. No matter what you do, we're grateful for all of it. We love hanging out here with you guys. Make sure you check out the next video. This is Problem Solver Politics. We will see you in that next video.